In this video I'm going to show you how I made this little audio amplifier for just €5. Don't judge it by its size though, because this thing is very powerful. It has a volume control and a switch to turn it on or off. It is all made possible thanks to this chip here. This is a Class D stereo audio amplifier. Class D amplifiers are very efficient and come in all shapes and sizes. You will find chips like these in, for example, Bluetooth speakers. This particular one though is much smaller, more powerful and cheaper than any other similar chips I have come across. It can be powered with anything between 9 and 24 volts, which also makes it very flexible to work with. There is also a single channel 30 watt version and a 3 watt version, and they are even smaller. Look how tiny that thing is. I have already used this chip before and I was completely blown away by what it can do. So let's get to it. Other than the amplifier chip itself, you will need 2 speaker terminals, a power switch, a DC connector, a RCA connector or mini jack connector, and, not shown here, a dual gang potentiometer to control the volume. I started with the enclosure and I decided to make a wooden box so I could practice my woodworking skills. I used some leftover plywood and I already made the cuts with my miter saw off camera. Here I am marking the locations of all the connectors. This is 18mm plywood, which is pretty thick for this application. But it gives me a bigger margin for errors and it also makes the box heavier and it makes it feel more robust. I used a drill to make the holes. They are pretty messy even after I am done filing, but it doesn't matter much since they will be covered up later anyway. After I made the holes, it was time to wire everything up. There are quite a lot of wires to do. I don't have a diagram, but the wiring is pretty simple. The left and ground from the audio input connects to the input of the potentiometer. The output of the potentiometer connects to the input of the amplifier. The rest of the connections to the amplifier are clearly marked. They are the 2 speakers and the DC power input. The power switch goes in between the DC connector and the amplifier, so you can turn it off. You can actually leave the potentiometer out if you want, but then the amp will always work at full power and you have to control the volume at the input device. After all soldering is done, it looks like this. Time for a test before we close everything up. Don't judge me by my lack of taste in music. But everything seems to be working fine, so it's time for another time lapse. I used hot glue to secure all the connectors in place and wood glue to close up the box. After the glue dried, it looked like this. I was pretty happy with the result so far. The box feels really sturdy. The speaker terminals are secured with small screws. I covered the box in vinyl wrap with a carbon fiber texture. I had this left over from another project that I will also showcase on this channel very soon. I carefully measured and marked everything, including the cuts I need to make for all the connectors. Then I simply cut it with a utility knife. After I wrapped the sides, it was all done. Like all my projects, it's not perfect, but this was a pretty simple project, so there was not a lot that could go wrong. All in all, I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out. I hope you liked this video. Please give me a thumbs up if you do. Thanks for watching, and until next time.